This video is sponsored by Coding Dojo. So we've got a winner for the latest, oh my god, I need a haircut. Winner for the latest giveaway, Marquez Wilson. Congrats, brother. I hope you enjoy it. You get a GMMK numpad by Glorious. And I think I sort of figured out a platform that can help me run giveaways, like have you all in one single platform, only those of you who are interested in like winning giveaways and things like that. I'll leave like a link down below and you guys can probably follow me there and we can figure it out together. Other than that,
I hope you guys enjoyed the video.
I guess this is the final showdown, M2 Air versus M2 Pro, both base models. You see, I'm pretty much convinced by now that the M2 Air is probably the device that delivers the best ROI for most people. And I'm basing this statement from all your DMs, comments, people on Twitter, Reddit, and so on. So what I thought of doing was addressing those comments and questions in this video and go over all the stuff that people hate, love, and admire about each of these devices. I'm pretty much trying to give you guys the big picture right here and share with you what the world really thinks about these, based from also their own experience, of course. Weight and portability is a big one right here. It's the characteristic that comes up more often within these Reddit threads and YouTube comments. We're talking about 2.7 pounds for the Air and 3.5 pounds for the Pro, and a thickness difference of around 0.17 inches. In my own personal opinion, for travel, they both feel perfect, but one does feel heavier than the other and a bit chunkier despite the fact their design language is very identical. To be fair, for those who really care about portability, a 0.8 pounds difference seems to be making an impact to a lot of people, especially for students and the type of people that commute often. In fact, Reddit users have quite a lot to say about portability and weight. While some truly find the 14-inch to be a lot heavier than me, others really don't seem to care about portability and the extra ounces the 14-inch delivers. I think the thing to ask yourself is it a factor that you as a person will truly bother you? Objectively, it's a fact that the laptop itself is thinner and lighter. A lot of people do think that the lightweightness the Air offers pays off as you move around from place to place. And when I say move around from place to place, I mean exactly what this medical student has to say. Some people even on the YouTube comment section rather prioritize portability over something like performance, and I think that's totally fair, as a lot of people really don't need that much performance. So between the M2 Air and the M2 Pro, what's the verdict? Well, my friends, as you can see, everyone has different opinions, including myself. I really don't mind the extra weight at all, but I'm also not a person running around 24/7, commuting, going from class to class, running around the hospital, going to see clients, and so on. I personally think, without being biased, that the best thing to do is to take advice from people that are running around with these devices. And like always, I encourage you guys to visit the Apple Store and see them for yourself. Now, you're most likely asking yourself, why on earth am I trying to compare a $2,000 laptop to a $1,200 laptop? And the truth is, well, I'm not. You see, for a lot of people online, the need to upgrade your M2 Air base model to 16 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage is a must. And I couldn't agree more with these people. However, if you are someone like my girlfriend, someone that their jobs requires them to use a Windows machine for work, like, I don't know, a CPA, a civil engineer, a logistics manager, and whatnot, this bump in performance does not apply to you. Why? Chances are, like my own friends, you just use your laptop for casual web browsing, Netflix, emails, some Excel work, PDFs, and whatnot. And you know what? Take it from this Reddit user who put together some amazing feedback regarding his experience with an 8GB model. Now, if you have hobbies or you want to pursue a profession like photography, video work, programming, music production, and so on, hear me out. First of all, 8GB of RAM is not enough, as you can probably see on my M2 Pro. I can fill 8GB extremely fast, especially when doing light coding and mobile development with simulators open, doing some Photoshop work with thumbnails, and simple tweaks to my photos within an app like Lightroom. RAM fills fast, and I'm not the only person running into this issue. I will say, from my own personal experience, an 8GB machine has been great with any kind of web development without Docker and entry-level mobile development, things I've been doing on my M2 Mac Mini base model. But as soon as I start getting a lot more invested into building full-fledged applications, I'm going to miss having at least 16GB of RAM available to me. Now, what happens when RAM fills that fast? This brings me to point number 2, SSD capacity. For the non-geeks out there, RAM in these chips is called unified memory for a reason. In simple terms, memory that is shared between the CPU and the GPU. Just imagine your brain and your eyes accessing the same resource. Apps tend to note how much free RAM is available and change their performance and resource management accordingly. For example, if you open up Photoshop on a laptop with 8GB of RAM, the more you use it, the more it will take a toll on performance as it reaches the 8GB threshold. And eventually, an app like Photoshop just simply does not have the ability to store data in memory like the components composing a photo, for example. Sometimes the app will use cache memory to avoid leaving everything for the RAM to handle. This means that the next time the RAM needs that data, it can reference cache memory like multiple times, but once all of it gets filled up, the RAM starts asking the SSD for more space. Now, what happens when there's no more RAM available for your GPU or CPU? Well, like I showed you guys, it will start borrowing storage memory, delivering the same speeds that the storage runs on, which is why a lot of people online also suggest to get a 512GB SSD spec instead of a 256GB spec. Why? Simple answer is write and read speeds. The 256GB model on the Air delivers 1 NAND chip, meanwhile the 512GB model delivers 2 NAND chips, meaning that the storage is able to read and write faster because it has a lot more chips helping out in a way. And according to The Verge, 2 NAND chips versus 1 NAND chip delivers differences in speed that are quite massive. Their base model MacBook Air very much delivers the same speeds as mine. To put point number 1 and point number 2 together, if you were ever to surpass those 16GB of RAM because of way too many applications running together or certain apps taking too much RAM, knowing that you have the fast storage module to interact with that will make things lag a lot less, and it's definitely a lot more reassuring. A lot of people online also rather just make the upgrade to future-proof themselves, but all of a sudden your MacBook Air purchase can cost more than $1,600 for something you might or might not use, and you might also find yourself playing the future-proof game even with a $2,000 MacBook Pro. Which leads me to the next point. For that extra $400, is the upgrade to the M2 MacBook Pro worth it? It depends on your needs and how you want to future-proof yourself. Yes, it's a CPU and a GPU with more power. The base model also comes with 16GB of RAM, but the storage runs on a single NAND chip with 512GB, which is odd but something to consider. However, it's not the full story. Physically, the Air and the Pro deliver different features, things like their displays, the ports, the speakers, their webcams, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth modules, thermals, battery life. There's quite a lot to talk about. Off the bat though, I will say these are almost identical when it comes to their design language. A flat profile with rounded corners and sharp edges that seem to bother some people when typing on the same keyboard layout but different design and style. Trackpads are very much the exact same size, and the speaker grills do sit in different places on each device. I think the only subtle difference with the outside design itself would be the ports and the bottom of the chassis, and no, it has nothing to do with their protruded feet, but more with the fact that the Pro has its own label engraved on this bottom panel. As for the ports, I think we all know by now what's good this time around. I mean, we finally get HDMI 2.1 on the Pro, which means that it can now support 8K displays at 60Hz, but most importantly, 4K displays at 240Hz. But that wasn't my case, which I found odd. I'm not quite sure why my monitor flickers when running at 240Hz. I tried researching this, but no luck. I'm thinking I could be having a faulty HDMI port. But at 140Hz, I can confirm that it works like a charm. Anyhow, we do get Thunderbolt 4 with the Pros, meaning that we can connect up to 2 external displays, and we also have the ability to enjoy MagSafe as well as an SDXC card reader. A card reader that seems to be faster this time around and more reliable. I say more reliable because if you guys saw our M1 Pro long-term review, you guys know that I've been having issues with my own slot. It doesn't always read my cards. Now, if we compare all of this to the Air, we still get a 3.5mm headphone jack, a MagSafe, but a lot less ports. In fact, we only get 2 USB-C ports. Actually, USB 4 40GB per second ports with Thunderbolt 3 backwards compatibility, which means that you only get to connect 1 external display at a time. There are workarounds to this, like a Satechi module that delivers a virtual signal to deliver dual displays, but it can be laggy at times and it really doesn't feel like a true native dual monitor experience. Is this a deal breaker for me? Honestly, with time my opinion has changed. I actually don't mind this at all because I find myself using curved monitors more than anything, but it seems to be a deal breaker for some people, and for others like this software developer, not so much. He rather focus on portability, mainly because a lot of software developers and programmers seem to always be on the go. If that's something that interests you and you'd like to maybe learn how to code to potentially start a new career in tech, a bootcamp with a good MacBook doesn't sound too bad. Bootcamps are there to help you and can save you money, time, and some headaches, and Coding Dojo is actually one I really recommend checking out. I've done it myself. In fact, a few months ago I attended their online coding bootcamp where they gave me a schedule for the day to follow. We did some algorithms exercises which reminded me very much of my time in uni, except at this time things were so much more interactive and people seemed to be a lot more interested. The instructor made a few group activities that were organized within our Zoom call. We used Replit to make sure we were able to collaborate on code, and I have to give it to her. She was extremely good at explaining topics and explaining the principles of algorithms. Coding Dojo is also part of Colorado's Technical University. They overall have a well-rounded curriculum where you will learn Python, JavaScript, Java, .NET, and much more. You'll have access to a bunch of resources, teachers, interactive activities, an online platform. It all depends on what type of program you pick. Whether you decide to go into software development, data science, or cybersecurity, I invite you to check their coding bootcamp in the description down below. Now, if the dual screen situation with the Air doesn't bother you at all, maybe the native screen will. We're talking about an IPS liquid retina display running at 60Hz versus a mini LED 120Hz ProMotion display. And look, ProMotion is really awesome, but it's not a must. I personally really like it. I've never really had issues with it. I love scrolling through code with it. I like how smooth things feel when going through apps, and any type of timeline content I consume feels good to the eye. To benefit from ProMotion, do make sure that you are not running your Mac in lower power mode, as it is a feature that takes up a lot of energy, but it seems like it's also a feature that some people just don't care about. Some really don't notice it at all outside of apps like Finder and Mission Control. Others really don't seem to find it that impressive, and there's people like me who just enjoys it and finds working on 60Hz monitors choppy. There are all types of people for all types of features, really, which is why if you are someone that really doesn't care about this, go for the IPS liquid retina panel. The panel itself still looks insanely good, delivers the same SDR brightness at 500 nits as the MacBook Pro, a wide color gamut, and true tone technology. You're only really missing out on the extra pixels, the XDR brightness of 1000 nits sustained in full screen and 1600 nits peak for HDR content, the mini LED quality, and ProMotion. Like, yes, on the MacBook Pro there will be deeper blacks and the colors pop out more. It's great for like design work, 3D work, and for consuming HDR content, but if you don't really care about any of that, I would just pass on it. As for the keyboard and the trackpad, it's all the same. The difference between the Pro and the Air is literally the design. The Pro has this black anodized aluminum keyboard deck, and when I first saw this on the M1 Pro, I thought it was going to make the keys feel and sound different. But both laptops sound the same. By the way, anodized just means that it keeps aluminum away from corrosion. Essentially, it provides a hard and a scratch resistant surface to an extent. Don't let the terms black anodized fool you, because the whole MacBook chassis is pretty much anodized, including the trackpad's surface, which is actually the same size as the one on the Airs, but in my own personal opinion, I feel like they do feel and sound different. The same exact thing can be said about the speakers, although this is a lot more noticeable. The speakers on the 14-inch Pro are far better than the M2 Airs. First of all, like I mentioned, they are both positioned differently. The Air also has a 4-speaker sound system, where the Pro has a high fidelity 6-speaker sound system with force canceling woofers. This time around, what's also awesome is that on the M2 Pro, the HDMI port supports multi-channel audio output. All you need to know about this is that it allows you to output sound like if you were in the middle of a concert, essentially a better soundstage. There's also a better mic array on the M2 Pro compared to the M2 Air. These are said to be studio quality 3 mic array with high signal to noise ratio and directional beamforming. And these are said to be a simple 3 mic array with just a directional beamforming. However, regardless of their mics, their webcams actually more or less look the exact same. Like, both laptops literally have a 1080p FaceTime HD camera. They both look very similar, but I do think that their image signal processor computes the images slightly different at times. I think it's because of the fact that both M2 chips are just different. But look, webcams do the job and look way better than 99% of Windows laptops out there. Unlike gaming Windows laptops, the MacBook Air thermals are actually insanely good. Like, this thing never warms up on regular workloads. Yes, it's fanless and has thinner thermal pipes compared to the M2 Pro, but even at that, even when I'm doing some web development, it always stays cool. It's only when I start to edit on Photoshop with Lightroom, or even when I start playing with Xcode, that this thing gets warm. Not hot, but warm. And I'm not the only one that experiences this with the MacBook Air. Of course, if you start doing pro tasks and start treating this as a machine that can handle crazy video editing codecs or crazy iOS development projects and so on, things can start to get hot and the machine could eventually thermal throttle under certain workloads. This is where having the fans and the more robust thermal piping helps, and it's why the M2 Pro would be needed under these types of circumstances. Although, just for show, I actually ran a massive Xcode build on both machines to simply see if the Air would thermal throttle under these conditions, and it didn't. Yes, it got extremely hot, although quite less compared to the M2 Pro, but never seemed to thermal throttle. Now, this is why I'm not a massive fan of only relying on benchmarks. They can get boring, dry, and they can never fully tell the overall story of a laptop's ability to perform. I did find this thread on Reddit regarding the thermals on the M2 Air when using a lot of business apps, and I wanted to put this workflow to the test on both these machines, just to show you how both of base models would handle a very business-like oriented workload. Alright, so I'm on a Google Meet, pretty interesting, on Chrome. If I go right here on my Stage Manager, you guys will see I have a bunch of PowerPoint, Microsoft Edge, Excel sheets, Mozilla Firefox with more than 30 tabs open. The same things for Edge, well, around 10 tabs. What else do I have going on for myself? I have PDFs, a bunch of big PDFs right here, books and whatnot. I can go back into Microsoft PowerPoint. Everything is perfect. I can tweak whatever I want right here. Let's say I want to remove all this, and it happens right away. Temperatures 52 degrees, everything's good. I can go back to Firefox and see the video tutorials I've been playing. Oh, nice. So, I'm watching a course, I'm learning about Excel. I want to go back to Excel. Let's say I learned how to filter things. I can just click this right here and it happens right away. I can just maybe scroll all the way down. You know, things happen really quickly. It's very nice, very fast. I guess it's the MacBook Pro, so it's to be expected. Things work really nice, and it's the same sort of workflow that the guy on Reddit had. Very nice, Slack working, and I can even type hello. You know, I'm not gonna send it, but you guys know what I mean. Things work. Now, moving on to the MacBook Air, we have the exact same workflow, guys. The only thing I really tried to make work was Microsoft Remote Desktop. I even went on Microsoft Azure here and created a whole VM with Windows to connect on both laptops and whatnot. Doesn't work. That's the only thing I'm missing. Other than that, let's say I want to go to Firefox and, you know, just go through tabs. I have a bunch of tabs, like I said, open, more than 30 tabs, videos playing in the background, learning about Excel. I can go on Microsoft Excel. There you go, pops out. Let's see, I want to filter some things, specialty products, let's say, or manufacturing. Things happen super fast. Clear filter. I can traverse the whole table. Let's say I want to go on Microsoft PowerPoint, and I can, I don't know, maybe move a graph here, move this here, and maybe change this to design. Happens very fast. I have a bunch of them open, the same exact workflow as on the Pro. Let's say I want to go to Adobe Acrobat, learning about programming languages, describing syntax and semantics. You know, I can read this super well. So it's just a tiny bit laggy, but it's not that big of a deal. Tiny bit. Other than that, let's go to Google Chrome. I'm having my meeting, whatnot, and then we can go to Slack. Where's Slack? Right here, Slack. And you know, I can type anything right here. Hey, I'm not gonna send that, but you guys get the gist. And I have the whole Stage Manager. You know, everything's very snappy. You can traverse my apps super quickly, super fast. Temperatures 71%. It's really not that bad for a laptop that doesn't have a fan. It's really good. Very happy. Performs exactly like the MacBook Pro. It's almost like the upgraded MacBook Air is not needed for this type of workflow. It's very much an upgrade worth doing for people with more intensive workflows. Another thing worth considering is Wi-Fi 6E versus Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.3 versus 5.0. We're almost talking about a 5-year difference here in terms of technology. I've always found it funky the fact that 5.0 tends to drop packets here and there, has a hard time dealing with a mouse, a keyboard, and headphones. It can be a mess, and overall 5.3 has been better in terms of connectivity. The only thing I can't comment on is Wi-Fi 6E. I think most people don't even have Wi-Fi 6 routers, and most of us are forced to use your provider's modem and router. However, I did run an internet speed test, and the M2 Pro seems to deliver better Wi-Fi speeds. Is it the same thing when it comes to battery life? This can be a factor that will vary on the user. I mean, Apple claims that they both deliver up to 18 hours of battery life, but the Pro user will tend to push their laptops a lot more, and the Air users not so much. Of course, it's all a case-by-case scenario, and I guess the best thing is to show you guys what my own experience has been like. I come from an M1 Pro, a device that delivers up to 17 hours of use compared to 18 hours on the M2 Pro. This is my M1 Pro. And to properly round them up and compare them together, let me show you guys something, okay? Today at the 2:18, we saw the laptop charge to 94%, and then at 1:47 p.m. on the Pro to 94% as well. Now it's currently what, 5:54. The laptop is at 39%, and 5:54 the laptop is at 33%. So that's what, like 60% from 1:47 to now. It's pretty good. It's quite the same thing for the M2 Air. So both in terms of performance perform exactly like the same, and this just take into account that we used Lightroom, we used Photoshop, we used the whole demo I set up for you guys related to the business productivity workflow. We used VS Code and all the cool stuff that happened right after we did the ultra wide demo over there and over here. Of course, those hours can drop to around 6 on the Pro if I was to use it like we did when we went to New York for the Bose event. The M2 Air, on the other hand, because it's my productivity laptop and the laptop that gets used for web development, is able to deliver better hours. Like last night when I was trying to set up a VM on Azure and all the files needed for the demo, it went from like 98% to 78% in like 2 hours. I was getting drops of like 5 to 6% every 45 minutes. With the same workflow, which is very much what I tend to do on this laptop, you can easily average like 13 to 14 hours of use. But again, this is one workflow. Everyone has their own unique workflows and everyone's battery life degrades and behaves differently. Look, battery lives are always tricky, and I think videos like a day in the life are always the best to properly showcase it. I will make sure to get a few out there before the start of the summer. Don't forget to check out the Apple Refurbish program if you want to save even more money on your devices. Like I said, if you're a user like my girlfriend, I strongly suggest you stay with the base model M2 MacBook Air and probably even consider an M1 MacBook Air. I've always said it, but the M1 Air is the best laptop ever made to date. I do think the M2 Pro can be the laptop for everyone, but at what cost? I think it's more about future-proofing yourself by knowing for sure you are the type of person to try different things. Other than that, if you are on the fence about power, it probably means that you don't need it. So stick to the M2 Air and make a decision on whether or not 16 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage is a must for you. Hopefully this review helps you guys. I am definitely looking forward to making a lot more day in the life videos. I will see you all soon. Take care.